Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's training. It's great to have you with us today, and we're happy that you guys are taking your time out. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending with us, and so we can explore some new ideas and things like that. We have some really fun things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about something that we call microbranding, something you may not have heard of before, and the reason is because I think we made it up. So we're going to talk about that today. But what we wanted to do first is we wanted to cover a couple of things, some questions that we're getting recently. And one of those questions was, what is a URL target list? And so when we have URL target lists, basically what we want to do is we want to use a keyword, and we want to go out and basically get a list of websites out there that are targeted on around that keyword, but have display advertising available on it in the sizes of the ads that we want to show. And so the best way to do that, let me show you what a URL targeting list looks like right here. So here's a URL target list right here, and this is what it looks like right here. It's a list. There's 36 items in this one. Let me click on update so you can see what it looks like. So all these right here. Okay, so let's go out and create one real quick. Let me show you how to go out and do your own research to create your own target list, your URL targeting list. And sometimes you're going to want to do this. Like, for instance, we have a company that we market for. They are a resistors manufacturer, very successful in what they do. And when they do display advertising, they do it much different than most of you all do it. So what they've done is they said, we have very highly technical people out there that are electrical engineers and other types of developers, like mechanical engineers, whatever, that use these resistors, and we know where they hang out. And I'm like, really? They said, yes, they hang out on these 10 or 12 websites. And so we went out there, and actually they had like 50 websites, but 10 or 12 of those 50 have display advertising that we can get on when we want to. And so what we did is we created a URL list with the ones that have the advertising, and we push their ads on those sites so that the people who are electrical engineers and mechanical engineers and the people who use specialized resistors, they see that ad all the time, and they get really good results from that, as you can imagine. And so what I want to do is take a few minutes and show you guys how we can go through and get a list ourselves. So let me get set up here just a second. Let me pull this away because I want to take you from the very beginning so that we can customize everything in here. We're going to default everything. All right. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a process to show you how to do this. Now, what we can do here is what you want to do is go into AdWords. So you can see AdWords right here. And what you want to do is when you get into AdWords, click on Tools and go to the Display Planner. Now, the Display Planner is where all the goodness is when it comes to display advertising. And what you're going to want to do is click right here, right under where it says See Insights and Forecasts for your targeting. You're going to want to click on this first one. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to type in, say, bariatric surgery. So this is something out there. It's like, well, how do you focus on people who need stomach surgery or who are obese, things like that, right? So this is how we do it. So let's type in bariatric surgery. And then what we want to do is we want to come down here and we want to choose, instead of CPC bidding, we want to choose CPM for, to focus on viewable impressions. And so because we're focusing on the ads themselves and not necessarily on the clicks. So this is a little bit different. So the next thing we want to do down here is we want to say, in the United States, we want to kind of keep it kind of general so that we don't get too niche. Like if you come down here and you say, I want to see all the websites in, say, Ahwatukee, Arizona, or Tuba City, Arizona, that focus on bariatric surgery, you're going to have like none, right? Because it's just too small of a focus. So let's keep it nationwide, and that doesn't mean you don't apply geo boundaries to what you're doing. But at least you get all the websites that everybody in the country are interested in searching, and that people will be searching in that area as well. So what we also want to do is come down here to the filters and say, I only want the sizes of the banners that I create. I don't want to create 300 banners. right? Because it's not worth my time. So what I do here is I come up here to the ad presets and I choose the catalog lightbox because that gets you most there. And it says show inventory that accepts expandable ads. It's just show only. You want to turn that one off because the expandable ads are cool, but we don't do a lot of those. It takes too much effort to build them. And so we want to choose the image here, and then we want to uncheck this 120 by 600, and what that leaves us the four most important ones: 300 by 250, 160 by 600, 468 by 60, and 728 by 90. So I'm going to go ahead and save that here. So now what we've done, let's just kind of review real quick. We've chosen the keyword or set of keywords. You can put many in here. I'm just going to choose one to keep it simple. That focus around the area that the local business is interested in. Then what we've done is we've chosen the United States to say, hey, the people here in the United States, what do they search for? And then we choose CPM bidding because we want to focus on the ad itself and not necessarily on behaviors. So we're working with ads where they're placed. And then we choose the ad formats. These are the specific sizes I want. And then what you want to do is click on Get Inventory Details. Now this is where the magic happens. So what we can do here is it looks like we lost our keyword. Looks like Google's broken again. So I'm just going to type in bariatric surgery and type in get ideas. Because this doesn't look quite right. Oh, this is more like it. All right, so what you want to do here is you want to click on placements. And then if you click on placements right here, this is where the goodness is, because this is where the ads are placed. They're placed on escape from obesity. Dover Med, Spark People, Weight Loss for All, Diet.com, The Military Diet, Weight Loss, All Women Talk, Brainy Weight Loss. All really good websites, wouldn't you agree? This looks pretty good. And so, so we can click on here under this 270 websites right here, and then I'm going to download them right here as a CSV file. All 315, actually there's 315 of them now. I don't know how that came up, but let's download them all. So I'm going to download this right here, and then I'm going to open up this display planner so I can show you what this looks like, because this is really cool. So basically this is really small. I know that this is small on my screen, so I'm gonna manipulate a couple of things real quick, and then I'll blow it up so we can actually see what we're doing. So just as a starting point, you can see all the website URLs are right here. Everything to the left is just garbage. There's nothing that you need to see here. It's just placeholder type stuff, right? So let's get rid of that. Let's expand this a little bit. And then everything from impressions over is garbage as well. It's all empty. So let's go ahead and get rid of all those and leave what we really want to look at, which is all this good stuff up here. So let's get rid of these top ones. And let's make it so that we can see this a little bit better by doubling it. Okay, so here's the websites and all that kind of stuff. Let's go here and we'll put this as this so we don't get it mixed up. Okay, so we have all these really great sites now that are focused around the keyword bariatric surgery. And not only just websites, but they're health and nutrition websites that have lots of impressions. Look at this. Let's see how many impressions these guys have. In fact, let's sort by impressions, okay? So let's come up here and let's do data. We can sort it based on, what is that one? I forgot to see. It's B. And let's do Z to A. Okay, so when we do that, we can see that Edge Trends right here, Spark People, there's some anonymous up here that we're gonna have to get rid of. But basically, these have like, what is that, 500 million impressions per week? Kind of thing. That's a big one right here. And so we can start seeing MedHelp right here. This one is 5 million impressions, 5 million to 10 million impressions per week, kind of thing. So these are some big healths, health.com, Heister Sisters, Fit Day, Chronometer, Reboot with Joe, all these great websites that offer display advertising in mass quantities, kind of thing right here, right? So if you're going to be offering display advertising for bariatric surgery and you want to really focus on people who need it, we just found it. Now this is how we use it in our system right here. So I'm going to get rid of some of these anonymous ones up here because they are not helpful. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a small group of them down here, and I'll show you how we prepare these. So basically what I'll do is I'll come over here and I'll open up a new screen, and I'm going to paste these in the second column right here, and then I'm just going to put in HTTP. And then I'm going to hold down my Option key and double click on this little thing right here, which will make it populate all the way down. Now what we need to do is we need to get that little space out of here, because when you take this and you paste it in, it's going to have like a little tab in there. So I'm just going to get rid of that real quick using some magic. And I'm just going to do a copy and replace is what I'm doing. So I'm going to come over here, and you can see I'm just going to copy that little tab in there. I'm going to do a find. It'll come over here, it'll find that little tab, and I'm just going to replace it with nothing. Okay. So now that we have these little well-built URLs, now it's time to go back to Traffic Oxygen and create ourselves a nice little retargeting or a URL targeting list. And so we can come up here and yeah, it's because I added these before. Here, let me just refresh real quick. I just did an example a minute ago. Okay, so when we add this targeting list right here, we can say we want to do this one as bariatric surgery 2. And the reason that we put a 2 afterwards is because I just did an example with bariatric surgery down here. So we can keep it straight. All right, so we want to include these because these are good ones. You can also do negative URL lists. So we can say, hey, we want you to do the whole web, but don't do these. Maybe they're competition or something like that. And so we can do a bulk add, and we can just paste in what we just found, and we can save the changes, and we're done. So these are the lists that we can use on the back end to super hyper focus on the websites that we want to put, or that you want to put your display ads on for your companies. So anyway, I hope this was helpful, and that you guys can go out there and do this. Now, you guys don't have to do this, by the way, because we kind of do a lot of this stuff on the back end when we need to. We just don't show you a lot because this is part of the cockpit of the airplane, you know, that we do to just make things work for you and to make sure that it's working well, that you're you have good targeted leads coming through from that. So I hope that was helpful, and let's go ahead and move on to our next topic for today. Here's what I wanted to talk about today. So feel free to pop in there different questions and different things that are interesting to you, or remarks or anything like that, because I'm going to go on a rant here for a few minutes. And I'm going to do it for a reason. And when I'm done with this, and by the time we're done with this discussion, I think you guys are going to have a slightly different viewpoint on what branding is for local businesses. Because if you're anything like me, about a year ago, branding for local businesses did not exist, at least not in my world. It does exist, of course, but not in my world. I didn't care anything about it. I thought it was frivolous. I thought that it was a waste of time and money. And it was, other than just having a nice website and having a nice logo and things to represent yourself professionally, I thought it was a bunch of fluff. All right. Well, since that time, and since Todd and I have gotten into the display advertising and things like that, Todd has been a big proponent of branding. And when he first started talking about it, the first thing that went into my mind was like, fluff. It's just fluff. We don't need it, right? What we need is we need to do, ranking and things like that, right? So I was in that mindset. But as time went on, there has been some important events that have gone through. So maybe I could just ask a couple questions, like how many of you guys out there, and I want you to kind of be, I want you to reply on here if you can. So pay attention. How many of you guys out there feel like your companies that you work for are becoming more and more of a commodity? Is that a true or false statement? Are they becoming a commodity? Definitely, Scott's saying true. Absolutely. Okay, so I agree. And it's really a bad place to be in when you become a commodity, because then people start looking at you and they don't look at your quality. They don't look at your service as being something that's exceptional. They just look at your price is the bottom line. Selling on price versus their distinctive value is what Patrick was saying. That's exactly right. It's a really bad place to be in. Would you agree? I mean, I've been in that place before too with SEO. It's a terrible place to be in, right? So everybody starts looking at your bottom line like, wow, you charge a lot more than the other guy. I'm going to pay $200 to this Indian guy over here. He says he can do the same thing that you can. And so you're just like, okay, good luck to you, kind of a thing, right? And so my background is in construction. With when I was growing up, my dad was he was an entrepreneur and he was a contractor. He owned his own company and it was called Ormiston and Sons. And all of the sons worked in the contracting company at one point in our lives. So I worked with him for about 2 years, which is why I went back to college and finished it, right? Because it's hard work. So, but during that whole process, I watched him become more and more of a commodity, down to the point where he could barely survive. He was having a hard time making his house payments. He was paying his employees, and things were fine that way. But there wasn't a whole lot left over. Definitely, there wasn't enough left over for him to grow his company or to do anything substantial as far as big upgrades for major tools or trucks or things like that, which were needed desperately. So, does this ring a bell when you're talking with your customers and how you see their businesses going? And so why is it that potential customers are chasing down the lowest bidder and making it much harder for these small business owners to stay competitive? Why is that happening? In some part, we are responsible as marketers. We sort of promote this. And then in other ways, there's other ways that are happening that are just kind of natural. I'm here, of course, we all want to pay the least amount for the things that we buy, right? We live in a microwave society. We want it cheap and fast, right? So that being said, that is not always the right thing to do. But if you notice out there, there is a lot of pressure right now on small businesses to offer the best quality regardless of it being the lowest price. It's just a huge dichotomy because they often cannot go hand in hand. When you charge a cheaper amount, you have to cut corners or you will not make it in business. And so really what it is we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot as consumers by demanding the lowest prices in there. So it's kind of a catch-22, all right? So I was thinking, Todd and I have been using display advertising for branding for a long time. And so one thing that we noticed is that we work with a lot of companies. And what we found is that there is one type of a company, and I'm not saying like a vertical, I'm saying when a company basically sets them up in a certain way, they do not participate in this race to the bottom. They are not a commodity. They're highly sought after, and they can charge top dollar for their products and services, even though they are much larger than some of the other smaller businesses. And they're much larger because they can do that. I'm not talking about, yeah, Steve says Apple. No, these are local businesses, contractors, plumbers, people just like they're the people we market for, right? But there's a distinct difference between a certain type of a company who's been able to escape this rat race and those that have not, that are still racing to the bottom. So let me illustrate this with a couple of examples real quick on how this kind of happens. So I'm going to jump over here to Google real quick, all right? I want to show you a couple of things on Google. I'm going to type in pest control. Let's try Boston. Okay. So when we are looking for pest control in Boston, we see a couple of things on the page. We see this right here where we have what we know now as 4 AdWords listings right here. It used to be 3, right? Now we also see right below it, we see this this area right here, which is the local listings. So these are the ones that are local to Boston right here. And they're the ones who have kind of earned the local listing. And then below it, we of course have the organic listings. Now I'm pointing this out. I know you guys kind of know this stuff, but I'm pointing this out for a reason, because have you noticed what is not here? What's not here is was on the right side, which was all the other local listings. And oftentimes a big local listing right here featuring a local company, typically like the Green Planet Pest Control, would have a big, kind of like a big, Google My Business listing up there, right? With all their details and stuff like that, right? That's all out of there. Yeah, look at that. Johnny B is killing it. Yeah, right? Johnny B, Johnny B, Johnny B. Yeah, we market for Johnny B. No, I'm just kidding. No, they are doing well. And that's exactly how we want all of our companies to be, right? In the top, the middle, and then the top of the organic. Okay, so basically what we don't see here is all the AdWords that are on the right side. Now, we've done a lot of research to find out why Google has done this type of a thing, and it's because they're trying to create a better user experience. Because we always used to call Google search results potpourri, because when you get here, it looks like somebody just splattered confetti all over the place, right? It was there's so much to look at. It was confusing. It was crazy, and Google finally got wise and agreed. And so what they did is they started to clean up their mobile platform, and then they followed suit on their desktop so that the desktop mirrors their mobile platform to simplify everything. Now, when Google simplifies things, there is always a fallout on any change that Google is making that's visual in nature, right? Somebody takes a hit. Now, how many of you guys know why there's only 3 listings here? Why did Google only put 3 listings? And yes, money is part of it, but that's not the main reason. There's a very specific reason behind it. Does anybody know? Take a wild guess if you don't know. Go ahead and type in why you think that there's only 3 listings here instead of the 7 that they had about 6 months ago. 3 fits on mobile much better. Too many choices confuses people. Excellent answers. Any others? 3 means that the original would have to use PPC now. So what he's saying is that the other 4 people that were out of the 7, it's forcing them to go up here to PPC. Okay, so that's the money listing. A VIP listing, higher premiums for AdWords. I agree with all of you. Now, I can give you the answer that I believe that it is, then I can give you what Google's answer is. So I'm going to give you what Google's answer is, just so we can stay above board here, right? Because I'm not a huge fan when Google makes changes like this that are against local businesses, because that's what we live for, right? So anything that hurts them is not a good thing in my book. But Patrick was exactly right. Google did this because it fits perfectly on a mobile device. 3 items fit perfectly on a mobile without having to scroll down. Now, Google did a bunch of testing, and they found that when you bring up your local listings on your phone, most people didn't scroll down anyway, and they clicked on the first 3. So they felt it was kind of pointless to have the other 4 below it anyway, because nobody was really scrolling down in the first place. So that was one of the big decisions that they made to remove the other 4 listings for the 7-pack and just leave the 3s, because people weren't using them. And then they made this fairly prominent down here where it says more places so you can get there. So they're still there. They just moved it up a little bit so that they only show it visible. So that's Google's reasoning behind it. Now, let me tell you what I think the ramification of that 3-pack is. And a lot of it is financial. So basically, when they took away all of the different listings here on the right side, they added a 4th one right here. Now, when you open up a browser, it's going to be about this big, right? So when you come in here, you see the paid listings, then you have these 3 right here. And then you come down here and you have to scroll down to get the organic. Well, Google has successfully pushed the organic down off of page 1 for the first time in history to create 100% paid search results. Now, you may be thinking right now, well, isn't local listing organic? Well, yes and no. Because in some cases, and I'm sure you guys have kind of seen, in some of the service areas right here, is that they have a button on here that basically says, I want a quote from these 3 companies. And so you can get a quote from these 3 companies. And here's the kicker. If you're one of those 3 companies and you're participating in this with Google, you've agreed that if you get a winning bid from the customer, that you pay Google a fee to get that bid. All right? So not only did you get the luxury and the chance to bid the lowest in your industry, to become the lowest bottom feeder in your industry, on top of that, you have also been awarded the pristine award of being able to pay Google on top of that. And so this is how Google is starting to participate in the local marketing, which in my opinion is despicable, to say the least, because what that does is it forces what we were talking about at the beginning, which is services based on price only, because from here, you cannot see one value versus another. You may like the name Boris because it reminds you of a cartoon, when we were growing up, right? Or you might like Johnny B's because it reminds you of a restaurant. But other than that, you don't know which one has better service. So basically, when you start doing this, and pest control doesn't participate in this. This is mostly like roofers and things like that. But basically, when you get a quote, the only thing you really see is the price. And so Google is participating in driving everybody, basically, in my opinion, pretty much out of business. Because when you participate in racing to the bottom and charging the least amount, you can't grow your business, you can't scale, you can't hire new employees, you can't buy a new truck, you can't buy new equipment and tools, you can't invest in yourself. You're done. So over a period of time, you're going to wane and you're going to fail as a business. And so I just don't see that as being a good trend. And Google has successfully, like I mentioned, achieved 100% paid search on page one, which I predicted 2 years ago. And they've achieved that in some cases. And you're going to continue to see that, where Google is going to make money off of everything that you see above the fold when you first do a search. All right. So we can complain about it, but you know what? Google owns it, so they can do what they do. So here's my point. Now, remember that I told you that there is a type of company out there that has risen above offering the lowest prices to get business. They're getting most of the business out there in the first place, and they're charging the most money for it. So I'm going to ask you guys, what type of companies are those? Because I'm going to get to my point here in just a minute. What type of companies out there? Do you have any idea? And I don't expect you to know, because I didn't know for the whole last year or whatever. What type of companies are those that have risen above, that they don't offer specials or deals or low prices? They may come out for a free quote, but then they charge you full price after that. And people are more than willing to pay that. In fact, they call them because they know that they're going to pay more because they want the quality and the service that they provide. So these companies, Ma was saying subscription, Anthony was saying unique services, Scott is saying highly niche experts. All great answers, but all wrong answers. And I'll tell you why. It's because these are the companies who have branded themselves. Now, if you think about it, when you think about plumbers in the area that you live in, is there one or two names that come to mind? Just a plumber. In my area, there's two people that come to mind for plumbers. Actually, one main one. It's George Brazil Plumbing. Now, George Brazil Plumbing is a big company down here. They're going to do somewhere between 40 and 60 million this year in plumbing and AC type work, right? So George Brazil has trucks all over the place. They have billboards all over the place. They have commercials. They have radio spots. They have all kinds of branding out there. So when I think about plumbers out there, the only one I can ever remember is George Brazil. That's it. It's because they have branded themselves in our area. Now, how many of you guys have heard of George Brazil before? Type in either yes or no. How many of you guys have heard of George Brazil Plumbing? I can tell you it's not a nationwide plumbing company as far as I know. Have you guys heard about it before? Nope. Haven't heard of it before? Yes, but I live in Arizona. Okay, excellent. So these guys are what I am terming, these guys have done micro branding. They have completely obliterated us with ads and with billboards and with trucks and with service and with all these marketing messages in the area that they serve. So they've micro branded themselves. And so they do not offer discounts on their pricing. They charge probably the most out of everybody, and people call them all the time. They don't make $60 million in a year by being number two. You know what I mean? So these guys are just crushing it. And the reason they're crushing it is because they have invested in themselves, they have branded themselves, and they've made themselves memorable to people who are in a crisis mode or who need plumbing services. So instead of, and if you look at the branded terms that people search for George Brazil, there's a ton of people who type in George Brazil Plumbing because they know the brand. Think about Kraft macaroni and cheese. How many people here have consistently heard people say Kraft macaroni and cheese and not just macaroni and cheese for lunch? I always hear Kraft macaroni and cheese. It's because we have been pummeled by Kraft Foods that they are the macaroni and cheese masters, and I sort of agree. And so they branded themselves because there's a lot of companies who make macaroni and cheese that charge a lot less. But do we go out and we buy the off-brand? Sometimes. But a lot of the time we buy the brands because we know we're going to get it. So here is the underlying point. The companies who want to survive, the companies who don't want to be a commodity, the ones who want to grow, the ones who want to charge full price for their services are the ones who are branding their companies. There are many ways that you can brand. You can be on TV. You can do billboards. You can have trucks with your logos on them. You can do display advertising. You can do all different types of things for branding, and they're all good. What is the cheapest way that you can brand a company right now? Let me ask you guys. Is it radio ads? Is it TV? Is it buying trucks? Is it buying billboards? Is it display advertising? What do you think? What is the cheapest way that you can brand a small business that doesn't have a big budget so that they can get out of this rat race? Anthony says display ads. Patrick says display ads. Robert says display ads. I sort of agree. This is the cheapest way we can get our companies out of the rat race so that they stop becoming a commodity and they start becoming a micro brand. So that we can basically say everybody in a 10 square mile radius, we're going to show everybody who searches the internet in there, your banner, your brand, at least 15 times in the next month. Every single one of them. This is what we can do. This is the power that we have right now. And then, yeah, of course, Mike is saying follow it up with retargeting. Absolutely. Ma was saying you can airdrop leaflets. Now that's interesting. I would love to do that. Just get those crop dusters out there and start throwing the pamphlets or the leaflets out. That'd be awesome. But there's lots of ways that you can brand for sure. And I would say none of them are bad ways to brand. They're just different, right? And so what we can do is we can affect a lot of great change in our niche, our areas, and for our clients by micro branding them. And basically that solution is going to tear them out of becoming a commodity. That's why we want to sell this as branding. That's why we want to position this as branding. And that's why the companies need this as branding. And so when we do that, we can get away from this, hey, I gave you $500 this last month and I want to see how many people converted. We can get away from that because you know what? You can say, you know what? You're branding. Do you want to be a commodity or do you want to brand yourself so you can get out of that trench? So let's not focus so much on the conversions. Yeah, we got some conversions. It was great. But that's not why we're doing this. We're doing this so that you can become a household name as a dentist, as a plumber, as a roofer, as a car mechanic. All of those types of things, you need to be on the top of mind for everybody in your area so they always think of you when they think of car mechanics, that kind of thing. So I'm going to step down off of my soapbox now. And I want to kind of open up to you guys. So do you guys agree? I mean, can you follow the logic and understand why we need to be branding our companies far beyond what they see as conversions and metrics and all that kind of stuff? Do you see why we need to brand our businesses? Yep. Yes. Yep. Excellent. So this is gonna be a topic of discussion over the next little while, because this is something that both Todd and I are very passionate about. I mean, everything that we can do in our power to help small businesses, we do. We've done it from an organic perspective. We've done it from paid search. We've done it from, for you guys that have been around for a long time, we used to go around and do like local Groupon type processes where we went and we would have like these boxes that would have like the screens on them that play like family photos and stuff like that. They're like framed picture frame LED screens. We put those on boxes and we would put them in businesses all around in like a 5 square mile area. We'd get like 30 or 40 businesses participate. And people would just put in their business cards so they could win like a free dinner at the restaurant, or they could get like a free pair of shoes at the shoe store or whatever. And then What they would do is these companies would all pitch in for these email addresses that we would collect, and we would do joint marketing. We would all market them. One day we would do a big blast for the restaurant. The next day we do a big blast for shoes. But all these people would get, every single day they would get these local ads, right? So we've gone, boots on the ground to get all this stuff done. So we've done tons and tons of things to help our businesses. And by far, the greatest thing that we've ever done is display advertising for our companies, because it gets their brand out there and it really gives them, it's the whole thing about, you guys have heard me talk about it before, but it's the whole chocolate covered vegetables rather. So how many of you guys know what chocolate covered vegetables are? So I know some of you guys have heard me say it before. I'm going to type this in here. Chocolate covered vegetables look like this. Let's take a look at this right here. That's what chocolate covered vegetables are. What does that mean in business terms? Chocolate covered vegetables is a business term that shows that what people want to buy is chocolate, but what they need are vegetables. Am I right? We all want chocolate, right? Who wants to eat their vegetables? Sometimes maybe, but most of the time I'd rather have chocolate. So we can even have chocolate covered jalapenos, or we could have chocolate covered Brussels sprouts. There's all different types of chocolate covered vegetables that we can have. So in business, retargeting is the chocolate. So when we go out, we sell retargeting, it's the chocolate because it's the sizzle, right? It's something that they're like, wow, that's really cool. I got to get that for me. The vegetables it's a vegetable as well, which is pretty cool. But the vegetables are display advertising for branding and for, the things that are not so sexy anymore, which is like, the SEO and the social media and all that stuff that's just like kind of meat and potatoes that you just have to do for the companies. That's the vegetables. And so we go out there, we sell retargeting as chocolate, and they buy the chocolate. And then what we do is we turn around and we say, you know what? This chocolate's really good. And it's actually kind of good for you too, right? Chocolate's a vegetable in itself, right? Am I right? And so you go out there and you say, okay, we've got you the chocolate. Now let's take a strong look at the vegetables. We need to start really beefing up your Facebook account. We need to start beefing up your rankings. We need to start beefing up your branding for display advertising. We need to do all these things. And so this is just a great way that you can go in there and do the right thing and still sell the sizzle. But at the end of the day, you've given them vegetables. And so you're going to be a hero. And so this is a topic that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and so I thought we would kind of talk about it a little bit today, so that we can start to refocus on why we sell display advertising, and we can start getting away from the conversion aspect of it. Not that it's not important, but that should not really be our focus. Our focus should be how many people saw your ad this month that is going to be a potential customer next month. That is what we should be asking ourselves. Now, we should be looking at the general growth of the company. We can send traffic in lots of different ways to the company. We should definitely measure those things. But it should all be secondarily to the purpose behind what we're doing, which is to get them from becoming a commodity kind of thing. Okay, so there's a couple of questions in here. Let me tackle these real quick. A little bit off topic. I am unable to click on these. Let me close this out and reopen it again. 1 second. Okay, so here's a question from Mike. It's a little bit off topic. We're kind of done for the day, so we can just do some more Q&A for the rest of the day. Thanks for listening to me, and I would love to hear your thoughts. If you want to send us an email, if you want to call us up sometime and just kind of chat about it, I'd love to hear your thoughts about what we just talked about as well. Okay, so Mike was saying a little bit off topic, but I wanted to change out a WordPress Google tag plugin, the one that I've used but is not updating properly. Will that lose the pixels, the data in the pixels for the traffic auction platform for that site? Yeah, so if you're having some problems with the Google tag plugin or Google tag, anything like that, we should work together, because replacing it doesn't fix things. I mean, we can fix things. It's not like replacing is going to make it work any better. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that. So if you're having a problem with that, please reach out to us, trafficoxygen.com. Go ahead and reach out to us, and we'll work with you on that. Make sure we get it all working. Okay. Patrick was saying this may be too much for the call, but let's see here. What would you do to go in and propose a micro branding package to local business? Like what types of services? Display advertising, retargeting plus, what initially? I was kind of wondering what your thoughts were. That's a great question, and I think it's absolutely pertinent to this discussion. So if we're going to go in and we're going to sell branding, first of all, we need to have that discussion, which is we need to ask the questions to the company, first of all, to say, do you feel like you're a commodity? How does it feel when you're going out there and bidding the lowest price to try to get business? Does that make you feel really good about your service, that you really want to job out and go the second mile for these people who are only willing to pay the absolute rock bottom amount for what you're doing? Probably not, right? And so what we should probably do as a group, this is out of the conversation, but maybe what we should do as a group is to come up with a list of like 10 or 12 really, really good questions like that just drill in the pain of what's going on with an oversaturated market and having to race to the bottom and becoming a commodity, things like that. We can start brainstorming some really good questions that really emphasize the fact. And so then you can basically say, we can get you out of that. You don't have to be there. You choose to be there. You don't know that you choose to be there, but you choose to be there. And I'll tell you why, because there's companies who are not there, and they're not significantly different than you are. It's just that they've invested in themselves in a way that you haven't yet. And then that's when you get into the discussion of retargeting and display advertising. Now, in this case, you probably want to lead with display advertising and talk about retargeting second, which is a little bit different. Because the display advertising is what's going to brand them and pull them out from the rat race of racing to the bottom based on price. So that's where you would probably want to talk about display advertising and how that's going to work for their company to pull them out so that people start knowing them as a brand. Now, this is a long-term commitment. This isn't something that they're going to be branded by next month, which is good for us as an agency. I mean, selfishly speaking, we want to have year contracts, right? This is where you start signing year contracts because you're in branding mode now, and branding does not happen overnight. But it's something that can happen over a period of time, like 12 months. I think you can absolutely brand a company in a very good way over a 12-month period of time. So this is where we start signing 12-month contracts. And it's really easy to talk about 12-month contracts because everybody knows you can't brand yourself overnight, right? And so then you definitely want to talk about retargeting and all the vegetables, ranking and things like that as well. But fundamentally, you can use branding as your focus for the companies. So I think that's a great question, Patrick. And I know we're going to be talking about it a lot more over the next couple of weeks too. Todd was really bummed that he couldn't be here today. He's out with some clients and stuff like that right now, so he apologizes for not being here. But he and I talked a lot about this over the last week. So Mom was saying, what percent of the branded companies are named after a person or location, like say Christ Orthodontics or Houston Orthodontics, things like that? It really doesn't matter so much what the brand is, because if you think about it, there's a lot of weird brands out there that we just take for granted, like Walmart. You know what Walmart is? It was like the guy's name was Walton, right? Walton's Mart. It's Walmart. So it's kind of at the time, he was probably going, that's a good idea. And everybody in the town's going, that's stupid. Do you hear what Walton did? He called himself Walmart, But now we just take it for granted. It's Walmart. Everybody hears it because it's branded. So don't worry too much about what the name of their company is. And, I mean, the name is the name, and make everybody remember it. So to do that, you guys are going to have to get real creative. You're going to have to come up with really nice branding messages that show the value, it shows the care, the expertise, whatever it is, the value proposition for that company. You're going to need to really drive that home to the people who are going to be seeing that message so that you can present them in the best light and brand them for what they're best at, kind of thing too. And so we'll be talking about that a little bit too. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. Can you put some number to the cost for a 12-month package for a project? Absolutely. The cost for a branding package, I would say would probably be around $1,500 minimum. Now, if you're working with a pest control company or a roofer or a plumber or a dentist, that may be like 2,500 or 3,000. So it just depends on which vertical market you're in. But I would say a branding package should never cost less than $1,500 a month, and you're basically keeping between $750 and $1,000 of that. Now, really, what we should be working for is keeping $1,500 and then charging them on top of that for all the services. So it may be more like $2,000, $2,500 for all of that. But you guys should be keeping at least $1,000 per customer when you're doing branding type stuff. All right, so because it takes a lot of time, you spend time with the customer, you work out the branding messages, you have to spend a little bit more time with them to be able to talk about the branding and how it's going and perceptions and things like that. So, get paid for what you do. You guys are experts. Yeah, Steve was saying, look at the experts like Apple. Apple is a great example as far as branding. I mean, who doesn't look at Apple, despite, like hiccups from time to time? Apple and Microsoft, in my mind, are heads and tails different as far as branding. When I think of quality, when I think of like smoothness in technology, when I think of ease of use, things like that, I don't think of Microsoft. Now, not that Microsoft is bad, because I like Microsoft because you can tweak it to death and do some crazy fun stuff with it. But Apple has positioned themselves as a leader in the market for ease of use and for simplicity and for technology and for quality kind of thing, right? So all good points there. So let's go and wrap it up. I know that it's been a long time. I'm sort of brain dead from a long day anyway. It's been a great day, but it's been a long day. And so thank you for staying with me today and for participating and for joining in. I hope that you got some value out of the branding solution, the micro branding. And I'd like to brand micro branding. And so I think we should start investigating that more. This is going to take some study on our side. It's going to take some effort to be able to kind of play this out, to get some marketing messages behind us. But stay tuned, because we're motivated to make this happen, and we can use your help. So if you guys have any good ideas on how we can better micro brand our local businesses, we're all ears, and we can all participate in joining this together so we can all become more successful. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks for investing in yourself. Thanks for participating and for being here each week to become better and to provide a good experience for both Todd and I as we go through there and help you guys with your campaigns and stuff like that. All right. So thanks for a great call, and we will talk to you next week at the same place at the same time. And until then, go crush it. Have a great week.